Hey friends, welcome back. If you're new here, my name is Bridget and I make home and DIY content here on YouTube. My goal is to show you inexpensive ways to make your home look and feel welcoming. And my favorite way of doing this is through projects that offer lots of room for personality and customization. If that sounds like your thing, I'd love to have you officially join the By Bridget YouTube fam by clicking the subscribe button and ringing the bell so you're the first to know when I upload new content. Now let's jump into today's video. I've got two very simple projects in store for you today, and both of them are perfect for when you want to create an intentional, elevated look when hosting guests, serving drinks, or even just styling your home. And the best part, both of these projects are inexpensive and made with items that are very easy to come by. Let's get started with the first one. For our first project, I'm going to show you the easiest way to create a beautiful serving tray. The finished product would look perfect on a bed to welcome guests, styled with books on a coffee table, or any other place you want to create a small display. Let's jump in. I'm starting off with a cutting board I got for $20 at HomeGoods. They had several nice ones for cheaper, but I really loved the curved edges on this one, so I didn't mind paying a little more. Next, I'm holding up the two poles that I will be using as handles just to get an idea of their placement. I decided to use a clear ruler for this next part so that I could line it up with the horizontal seam in the wood. My poles are 4 inches wide, so I'm making a mark 1 inch above that seam line and another one 3 inches below. I love using this ruler because it has small holes in it 1 inch from the edge that I was able to stick my pen through to mark the board. I'm repeating this same process on the other side so that I have 4 marks in total. Then I'm placing 2 sanding sponges underneath the board to elevate it off of my counter so that I can drill a pilot hole all the way through the board at each of the 4 marks. When the holes are done, I'm flipping it over and placing 2 of the shorter screws that came with my poles through the holes. Then I'm flipping it back over and attaching the handles onto the screws, first by spinning it just to get it started, before tightening it with my multi-screwdriver. If you watched my top 10 power tools video, you'll know how much I love this multi-screwdriver tool. I'll make sure to link that video below for you to check out if you haven't seen it already. When both handles are securely attached, I'm doing one last important step, adding small adhesive felt pads to the 4 corners. This elevates the tray slightly and ensures that the rough screw heads don't scratch or scuff any surface I place the tray on. And that finishes off our first project. I'm really pleased with how this simple DIY turned out, and as you can see, my cat Brioche is a fan too, or maybe she just likes being on camera. As I mentioned before, there are so many uses for a tray in your home. If you're someone who keeps items on your coffee table or countertop that always seem to look disorganized, consider placing them on a tray instead to help corral them and make it look styled and intentional. Our second project is one of my favorites because of how insanely inexpensive it is and how easy it is to customize. If you have a secondhand homeware store in your area, such as the Restore, you can purchase individual tiles for very cheap. For this project, I grabbed 4 tiles for 15 cents each, and I'll be showing you how to turn them into coasters that would be perfect to use on the tray from our last DIY or any surface you want to protect from glass rings. Let's get started. I'm starting off with these 4 tiles that I got for just 15 cents each. I browsed Pinterest and decided to use these 4 coaster designs as my inspiration. My first reference photo has a wavy organic shape at the bottom, so I'm duplicating that here, but instead of using pink, I decided to use this dusty teal shade that matches my current decor a little better. After giving it a few coats and allowing it to dry, I'm going in with some of my favorite brass gilding paint, but you'll notice that I'm actually dipping the back of my brush into the jar so that I can get perfect circles on my coaster. I also like that as the brush has less paint on it, the dots get smaller so that it's not all uniform. You can add as many or as few dots as you like for this step. I decided to do quite a few of them because I love this brass color. While the first coaster dries, I'm using my next reference photo to mark off a section of my second coaster with painter's tape before giving it several coats of this soft ivory shade. When the final coat is dry, I'm removing the painter's tape and adding a fresh piece on at an angle, making sure that the edge is firmly in place. Then I'm using the same brass gilding paint as before to paint this section. I love that even though it is thin, this paint is very opaque and gets full coverage with just one coat. You'll notice that I'm taking care to keep all my brush strokes going in the same direction so that everything stays uniform and looks crisp. When the brass paint is dry, I'm removing that last piece of tape and setting this coaster aside for now. To achieve the crescent shape of this next design, I'm placing a mug upside down on my tile and tracing the edge of it with a pencil. It's a little difficult to see on camera, but in real life this line was easy to use as a guide for my white paint. As before, I'm working with my brush strokes going in the same direction as much as possible to keep everything smooth. This white paint took several coats to get full coverage, but it was worth it. When the last coat was dry, I'm using, you guessed it, the same brass paint to freehand a thin line separating the unpainted and painted sections. I purposely limited myself to 3 paint colors for my coasters to keep them cohesive. For the final coaster, I'm pulling out my painter's tape again and marking off about 1/4 of the tile before adding a few coats of the dusty teal paint from earlier. This time, I'm leaving the original painter's tape on my coaster and adding a thin line of brass paint along its edge. After attempting to freehand this one, I decided to add a second strip of tape parallel to the first one to use as a guide. This gave a much crisper, straighter line in the end. It was so satisfying to peel off both pieces of tape and enjoy the perfect lines on this coaster. To make the coasters more durable and to give them a glossy finish, I'm adding 1 thin coat of dishwasher safe Mod Podge over top of each one. This also means that you can rinse them off in the sink whenever you need to. When the Mod Podge is dry, I'm adding the same felt pads from our tray project to the 4 corners of each coaster to protect whatever surface they're resting on. I don't have a cat model in these aftershots, unfortunately, but I hope the finished coasters are almost as cute. I love how using just a few paint colors that pair nicely together, I was able to create a matching set of coasters. I know I keep saying it, but I just want to remind you yet again that I got all these tiles for less than $1 total, and the coasters I was using for my inspiration photos cost between $30 and $40 for a set. Considering I had all the other materials on hand, I'm quite happy making them for about 2% of the original price. Thanks so much for hanging out with me today. I loved creating these simple, inexpensive projects with you, and I hope you're feeling more motivated to look around you and repurpose everyday items into beautiful, functional pieces for your home. I'd love to know down below if you have a favorite project from this video, and if you enjoyed watching, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing, as it really helps my growing channel out. Thanks again, and see you next time.